Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Richard Tang, CEO of Zen Internet, and today I am delighted to welcome to our HQ in Rochdale, Allison Kirkby, the Group Chief Executive of BT. Allison, very warm welcome.
Great to be here, Richard. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, you have one of the biggest, if not the biggest job in our industry. You've just finished the first financial year as Chief Exec of BT Group. Highlights and lowlights from that first year.
The highlights are the people. We have the most amazing, passionate, proud people that really want to do the best for our customers every day, despite the fact that we don't always make it easy for them. So people are amazing. Just the scale of what we are trying to do, I didn't really recognise that actually this is the UK's single biggest infrastructure project at the moment, and we're doing it ahead of time, ahead of cost, and it really is a shining light for the industry and for Europe, how to really build a fibre platform of the future. And that's very much been done by the Openreach team, which I know we'll get into. And really the fact that we are still progressing on our modernisation and transformation, and we've actually stepped that up and accelerated that a bit this past year. I think the lowlights, the UK is a very competitive market. It's become even more competitive. And because we've not yet modernised and transformed, we're not moving at the speed we need to in some areas. And so we've probably lost a little bit too many customers this last year, whether it be on the Openreach platform or in some of our retail businesses, because they're under pressure from competition. We still have too much legacy tech, products, services that just in general slow us down. So people are great. The modernisation of Openreach and the upgrade of the country's digital infrastructure, great. But the legacy we've been holding on to legacy for too long, and that's making us too slow. And in an increasingly competitive market, that means that we're not retaining and growing our customer base in the way I'd like to.
So let's talk about that increased competition, because you are making a huge investment in full fibre.
Yep.
And you can share how much that you're making, but losing market share. And I'm sure that you and everyone else at BT are thinking about, okay, we're making this huge investment. We're investing more than anyone else in the UK. How are we going to fight back? How are we going to win back that market share in these days of very much increased competition?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I'm under pressure from my board and my shareholders the whole time. I think, we are, as a BT group, we're investing £4.8 billion this year. We did it last year as well. We've been doing it for multiple years, and a large chunk of that is in the fibre upgrade of the country in Openreach. The way we look at it is, 5 years ago, BT had an asset that was declining in value and would become obsolete. The copper network, the VDSL network that Openreach had, it was obsolete. It probably had another 10, 15 years of life, and then it was going to be gone. This investment that we're doing now, and I don't think many people know, we are the FTSE's biggest investor into the UK at the moment. That 4.8 billion is the FTSE's single biggest investment into the UK. Just under 2 billion in fibre, and then a lot of it is in, our mobile networks and the upgrade of our IT estate as well. What that investment will do will create a new asset for the next 40 to 50 years. So it's a once in a generation upgrade of BT's infrastructure, but actually the country's infrastructure. And it will last a lot longer than what we had before. Now, we recognise that in the past, we had a deteriorating asset, and we maybe had a 75% market share from a wholesale point of view. In the future, it won't be a deteriorating asset. We'll have a smaller market share, but it'll be a more valuable modern day asset that delivers a much better customer experience. So it'll be cheaper to operate. It'll give a better customer experience. Our customers will be more loyal to us, and we'll be able to run the company in a much more efficient, modern way. So we'll, despite the fact we'll have a lower market share in the end, it will be a better product that we're selling through it, and we will get a return on investment on it, even with that lower market share. But I've got to ensure that I'm not just investing in the fibre. I'm actually connecting and migrating my customers to that fibre as quickly as possible. And then in my retail businesses, modernising all of the products and services that I go to market with, so I can start to grow market share again in my retail businesses where I don't have the starting market share point that Openreach had.
Yeah, but so it sounds like you're resigned to the fact that although you're making this huge investment, your market share will continue to decline for a while and then stabilize out.
In wholesale, the regulation that allowed the fair bet and the ability for us to get a double-digit return on investment into our fibre did assume that Openreach would have to lose market share.
Right.
But it is a more profitable product that we'll have in the end. So it's a lower market share with better economies in the end. And then it's not to say, and it's my ambition, that our retail businesses can start to return to growth on the back of having that next generation fibre infrastructure, mobile infrastructure, surrounded by all of the security wrap and added value services that we put around that in the retail business. So it'll enable my retail business to return to growth. It'll enable me to have a future-proof, more profitable wholesale business, albeit with less customers. And I'll be able to run the company with much fewer people and products and services that will allow me to radically simplify my company and actually give a much better customer experience too.
Yeah, so I mean, it feels a bit like you're still on a journey between being the incumbent with the benefits of being a monopoly in a large part of the country, moving towards, I guess, complete free market competition. I don't know if we'll get all the way there. Is that the way you're looking at it, still in that journey?
Yeah, we're still in the journey. My retail businesses, they do not have monopolistic, incumbent market share positions. I've got just under 30% retail market share in mobile. I've got about 35% broadband market share in retail. It's only in the wholesale business of Openreach where we had the 75% market share. But in the future, and you're already seeing it in some parts of the country, there are now 2, sometimes 3 providers of fibre access. And so over time, those areas should definitely be deregulated.
Yeah.
Is my view.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's certainly...
But we're still on a journey.
We are on a journey.
Yes.
And look, free market competition on the whole is a good thing.
It is. It spurs innovation and competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about your focus on the UK, because you've recently agreed a deal to sell BT Italia. You've agreed a couple of months ago to sell BT Ireland. And you've been very public about let's focus on doing the best in the UK.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit more about why you've I suppose, refocused on the UK at the expense of the international businesses.
Well, these businesses, you need scale to be able to get a decent return on investment for your shareholders and your owners. And BT, as a group, had spread itself too thin over the years. We have this global or international segment that serves multinational customers outside of the UK, but we don't at all have the market share that we have in the UK business. It's a very competitive segment. It's been the international segment. It's been very much disrupted by the hyperscalers, by cloud-based networks and services. And so it's an area that's ripe for consolidation and transformation in its own right. And I don't believe BT should uniquely own that business. I think it would be better that we either exit, like we've done in Italy and Ireland, or we partner with others in some of those, so that I can then focus all of my capital allocation to my core business, which is my Openreach fibre business and my, UK retail, both business and consumer businesses from a connectivity point of view. So it's, it's difficult to get a return on investment in telco.
Yep.
You've got a better chance of doing it if you do it in a very focused manner in the domestic markets where you've got the right to win. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Let's talk about your share price. So I had a look at your share price back when you joined the beginning of February last year.
Yep.
It's over 50% higher.
It's been a good investment this past year.
Yeah, so BT has been a fantastic investment
Yes.
in the last year. So apart from you joining, what do you think are the factors that have led to such a growth in the share price?
Yeah. Well, BT's share price is very much linked to the free cash flow that it throws off. When we were throwing off 3 billion in cash, our share price was about £3. When we were at peak investment phase on fibre and we were throwing off about 1 billion, we were about £1. And I inherited a guidance to the market that said that we were going to get back to 3 billion and hopefully therefore £3, but not until the end of the decade. And the market wasn't giving us any credit for that because it was kind of sitting on the fence saying the end of the decade is too far away for me I might as well just put my money elsewhere and wait and see if they deliver. If they deliver on the fibre bill, they deliver on getting back to growth in their retail businesses, and they deliver on their transformation agenda. So what I did last May was I mapped out how we were going to grow from 1 billion in cash flow to 3 billion, and it not all come in 2030. And so I was much more transparent on how the market could then measure us along the way. So I said we had past peak CapEx, and we'd start to inflect cash flow growth again in already this year. And then with the next step up next fiscal year after the end of 26, when we'll pass 25 million homes with our fibre build, then we'll be in fiscal year 27 we'll be at 2 billion, and then by the end of the decade 3 billion. So I showed them a route to getting back to 3 billion, and the market has started to give us credit for that. It's given us credit, and I think I wouldn't underestimate the fact that Openreach are doing the best job probably in the world at the moment on fibre build. They're building further, faster, more efficiently in a high quality way than anybody else. And because we're building that really great asset for the future, and it's going to be an asset that will last for 40 to 50 years, we're starting to get credit for that. So the Openreach build going really well, the modernisation and transformation of the company going really well. We're showing a route to 1.5 to 2 billion to 3 billion, and that's what we're now getting the credit for.
Yeah, well, fantastic. I mean, we work very, very closely with Openreach, and I have to say, what a brilliant team. It is a brilliant team.
They're a great team.
What they are achieving is fantastic.
No, what they're
Absolutely
achieving
fantastic.
for BT Group, but for the country, you
Yeah.
know, because we support all of the CPs.
Yeah.
Everybody's in our ducks and our poles, and so no, it's I'm super proud of what they've achieved.
Yeah.
But one of the things I forgot to say earlier, we've lost a little bit too many lines recently. So we've got to be competitive and not just accept that, every line we can just lose forever. So
Absolutely.
So they've got more to do to step up for the future.
Absolutely. Let's talk about AI.
Yep.
So it'd be interesting to hear what your experience has been so far of deploying AI within BT.
Yep.
Maybe what's worked, what hasn't worked, and what your vision for AI is in the future. What sort of impact might it have in the coming years?
Well, we've been using AI, not necessarily Gen AI, for years. You probably have as well, as we've been looking at kind of predictive mechanisms as to, how to run your network in a smarter way, how to consume energy in a smarter way. And just the new models are just making that information and those algorithms a little bit smarter than they were. Where we've seen a step change, developer productivity has gone up, 30 to 40% as a result of Q. And we spend a lot on IT. We have a lot of developers, so that's been a real efficiency drive for us. We're increasingly using it for some of the more basic tasks in our call centers. So Amy is our chatbot, Amy, double E at the end, like EE. And she's becoming more intelligent and starting to handle even more tasks. And so her net promoter score is 20 points higher than the human equivalent. Now, she handles a different kind of set of tasks, but still 20 points higher. And AI is making her smarter and better all the time. And then, generally in our networks, from an energy consumption point of view, Openreach have used it to really do better planning for fibre build. So they send less truck rolls out now in advance because they can use AI to better predict what the build might be based on the street, the type of housing, the experience from the past. And so sending out less truck rolls is good for the environment, but also good from a cost to build and a cost to provision point of view too. So those are examples of areas where we're using it. I think where we've, everybody uses 70% of our workforce probably use Copilot now because we use Microsoft. Are we really utilizing it in knowledge work yet? No. But we're just getting into using it in the call centers for call summaries, which saves time of the agent. So it will start to remove a lot of grunt work for some of our people. And hopefully then we can redeploy them to more added value work as well. So it's kind of been used everywhere. But we've got fantastic productivity gain opportunities from it. I think it will also improve our customer experience over time as well. But you need your data collated in the right way so that it really drives improved customer experience. And that, whereas we've now got all of our 17 petabytes of data in the cloud, we're not yet really fully utilizing the use of it in the world of AI, and that'll bring a huge opportunity considering the complexity of our business.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly seen benefits in terms of efficiency and customer experience from using AI and developer productivity. Not as good as yours, actually.
No, it's very, no. Amazon like to shout about us because it's so good. Yes.
Yeah. And one question particularly about large language models, when you look at the sorts of problems they can solve, the questions they can answer, I wonder, do you think that is the glimmers of real intelligence within a machine, or is it just a pretty clever algorithm that's predicting the next word, but it's just running an algorithm? There's not real intelligence as you would describe a human with real intelligence.
I think the day-to-day use cases that we're living with is just smarter and smarter algorithms.
Yeah.
I think where you will see real breakthrough with intelligence is probably more in healthcare and medicine, from a preventative point of view, from a diagnosis point of view. I think that's certainly whenever you get exposed to Demis Hassabis at DeepMind and you just listen to what AlphaFold did and what he expects in the future, that's the area where you feel that's real. That's intelligence on top of human intelligence. And it's going to be great for society. And I think, but in our use cases today, it's just smarter algorithms and those large language models getting access to more and more information. It's amazing how Google search now is becoming much more intuitive, and some of these search engines are just becoming smarter. Is that an algorithm, or are they becoming more intelligent? Who knows? Probably a bit of both.
Yes. Interesting times anyway. Let's talk about cost cutting, because you've been very public about the need to cost cut, the need to reduce your workforce by the end of the decade. Be interested to hear, where are you on that journey? How's it going? And I guess, how do you maintain the morale of your people if you're downsizing the business?
Yeah, well, BT needs to transform. We need to meet a more modern day, more agile, nimble company that moves faster for us to be able to compete against some of our more nimble peers. And when we started out on this journey, this latest journey back in 2023, we had a workforce, a mix of both BT employed and subcontractors of 130,000 people. And when we benchmarked ourselves against similar peers, our productivity scores were about, we were about half the productivity of our peers. So that was going to become a threat to our business if we didn't address it. And it's a number of things that allow us to do that. Simplifying our product estate, moving to modern day technologies that consumes less energy, getting out of copper and VDSL to a fibre product that has less faults, requires us to have less engineers. Once we have, radically reduced the number of products and propositions we sell, and they're on modern day technology, we won't need the number of people in our organization that are managing some of the broken processes that we have around the world. So, and we're doing it in, month by month, quarter by quarter. We are getting on and delivering. So we will already, this year we will end the fiscal year below 120,000. And where we're seeing, and part of that is we are seeing significant fault reduction already in our Openreach network. So we're reducing headcount there. Some of that headcount we have is not necessarily BT employees. Of that 130,000, about 90,000 were BT employees, and about 70,000, 75,000 of those are here in the UK. The rest are subcontractors. Some of those subcontractors we have because it was inefficient for us to hire those people, and they might be there as we're doing the fibre build, but we won't need them after the fibre build. And in terms of motivation, because it's a plan over a number of years, we can work with the workforce. We can use natural attrition like retirement, or, in call centres, you have a much higher natural attrition anyway, because people, it's maybe 25% churn versus 10 to 15% in a head office. So we can really, we're trying to do it through natural attrition and less use of subcontractors and less use of offshored people as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Let's talk about women in tech, women in telecoms. So Ofcom reasonably launched their Women in Telecoms pledge.
Yep.
And Zen and BT are two of the 20 companies that are signatories to that
Good for
pledge.
us.
Absolutely good for us. And when Ofcom launched that, you did a speech at the launch event, and a few of our team were there. They said what a brilliant speech Allison made, really motivational. But it'd be really interesting to hear your journey as a woman in an industry where the big majority is men. I heard from Katie when she gave her account of that. They're really interesting to hear. But your own journey as a woman and I won't use the term male dominated, but there's just more men than women.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let me start with what I believe in, and then I'll tell you my journey. I believe any service-focused businesses, any customer-facing businesses, need to have the diversity of the customers they serve and be representative of the societies they operate in to be successful. Because I think you just need to, you need the diversity of those customers to inform how you develop your products, how you take them to market, how you engage and communicate. So first of all, that is a principle of mine. And it came from 20 years at Procter & Gamble, when they went into the beauty care industry and they only really had the men that had done the detergents business. They realized they didn't have enough of the consumers in their own business to really develop the beauty products of the future. And actually, it taught them to realize it was mainly the women that were making the purchasing decision on the detergents anyway. So they had this philosophy, and that lives with me. And therefore, any business I go into, and BT being my current passion, I want to have a workforce that is as representative as the customers we serve, because then we'll be a better workforce and we'll be better at service. My journey, I haven't been to university. I started work as a 17-year-old apprentice accounting trainee in the Scottish whisky industry. I was the first woman to fill a cask of whisky. I was the only female in the management team, even though, because the trainee management scheme, I was a manager. All the women were in the typing pool. So I've always been in a more male-dominated environment. So I've never felt uncomfortable. Look, actually, sometimes the women made me feel more uncomfortable.
Okay.
Actually, I think any work group that is polarized in any way is not good. I think back to you need diversity. And so I've always kind of tried to ignore the fact that I'm, a woman. But because, my dad died when I was 16, I come from a working class environment. My ambition in life is to achieve as much as I can, because you don't know how long your life is going to be, and make a difference in the best, biggest possible way. That's what drives me. And so I've always ignored the fact I'm a woman. And just tried to make bold, brave decisions to develop me, to develop my career, so that I could have the impact that I have. And that's what I really encourage in all of the work I do with minorities, whether it be social mobility minorities or female minorities or ethnic minorities. Don't think you're different. Get your, just be bold, be brave, push yourself out of your comfort zone. And particularly for women, make sure they do that early enough in their career so that they don't fall backwards when they go through the period of having children, becoming a wife or a mother or whatever. And then I really make sure that the environments I've been lucky to work for great male leaders who were great allies and mentors to me as I developed myself as a leader. And I try and do the same for as many women as I possibly can. And the more we have role models there, the more we can encourage more young women. And our sector needs that diversity. It's still a little bit too male-dominated. And I think you see that in some of the products and services we develop are amazing. But do we really communicate them in a way that resonates with the average person on the street?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't always. We've made it very complicated.
Yeah, we love our acronyms.
Oh, we love our acronyms. And I certainly, when I came into the industry, there was a lot of men made me feel very uncomfortable because I didn't know the industry. I was 25 years in consumer goods before I came into telco. So it wasn't being a woman that made me feel uncomfortable. It was actually because I didn't come from within the sector.
Yeah.
But then because I'm a little bit of a feisty one, I thought I'm going to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always done, because I have that mission of just going as far as I possibly can, but making a real difference along the way for the colleagues I lead and the companies I lead.
Fantastic. Let's finish off with a look at the future. Then it'd be really interesting to hear your appraisal of the full fibre market as it is today. Lots of change going on, lots of talking of consolidation, and I think a general view that the market will consolidate from the circa 100 full fibre players today to a very small number, maybe a bit like the cable companies did back from the 90s. But what do you see happening for the remainder of this decade in terms of, the bigger players like VMO2 Next Fibre, City Fibre, you've got Netomnia, Brisk, and then lots of the smaller players.
Yeah. Well, I think having spent the last 10 years in Scandinavia, who are 10, 15 years ahead of the UK in terms of fibre build, I have got a good view of what might happen. I think we should all, just before I go into that though, I think we should all stand back and recognise what a phenomenal job we are all doing for the UK and the UK economy as a result of this investment. BT's investment alone into fibre will generate around 72 billion of economic value for the country by the end of the decade. So I think that context is really important for what we're doing for the country. And I think it's important we work with regulators and the government to help them really understand how important this infrastructure is, this once in a generation upgrade of the country, and how we could actually lead the way for other critical national infrastructure, whether it be energy or water. Anyway, put that aside. How do I see it playing out? It's pretty clear that, and if you look around the world, it will not make sense for the UK to be served by 100 different fibre providers in the future. I don't think it will be necessarily good for the country's resilience. And not all of those 100 providers will make an economic return on their investment. It's just not going to happen because it's a very competitive market. It's very difficult to pass through pricing onto customers. So if I look at Scandinavia, what you saw there probably wasn't 100, but what you saw in Scandinavia was a lot of what they called city networks developed around cities. And it was the incumbent that was generally in the rural areas. And how you've seen that played out is there are maybe 2 large wholesalers that are nationwide in nature, and then smaller retail operators that are very concentrated around the cities. And so multiple choices in the cities, but 2, sometimes 3, depending on the country, that are really nationwide infrastructure. And that nationwide infrastructure is open to all for everybody to wholesale from. Yeah. I think, where it's playing out at the moment here, I think there will only be one nationwide wholesaler in the end. So I think large parts of Openreach will probably stay regulated. I think there will be 1, possibly 2 other alternative wholesalers across the country, but they might not be everywhere. And then you'll have a concentration of in around the city areas, around with some of the altnets. But there will need to be consolidation because it won't make sense to have 100.
But based on what happened in Scandinavia, I mean, how long will that take from where we are today? I mean, do you see it all settling down by 2030? Will it be faster? Will it take longer?
I think I would have expected it to go faster as a result of what's happened to the cost of money. I think it's not moving as fast at the moment because there's a lot of investment has gone into the ground with still very high valuation expectations that are unlikely to materialise. And I think that's not moving yet until people get realistic on what the relative valuations are of their business. I think that will start to play out in the next 2 to 5 years. But I think we will be into the next decade before you really see the end state.
Yeah.
Because there's still a lot of customer migration to happen as well.
I tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
Definitely. So last question is, I get the feeling sometimes with BT that BT is just very, very focused on doing its own thing. You've got the altnets all doing their thing, and almost never the twain shall meet. However, you have demonstrated in the past that you will be acquisitive if the opportunity is right. You acquired EE, you acquired PlusNet back many years ago. And I guess, what do you think about the possibility of BT acquiring some of the bigger altnets, or even potentially partnering with an altnet, actually acknowledging, let's say, in a rural area, that's really difficult to build. It makes much more sense to just partner on a wholesale basis with that altnet? Or is it the case that the Openreach machine is just so efficient and focused that it's just going to build everywhere?
I think, for now, we are very much focused on ensuring that Openreach has the opportunity to migrate as many of its customers as it possibly can onto its fibre platform without us thinking about partnership. But further down the line, there will absolutely, as we see where, because Openreach is not planning to build everywhere, we're planning to get to 25 million homes by the end of 26, 30 million by the end of the decade. There will be about 34 million premises in the end. I will want my retail businesses to be able to sell to everyone. So there will definitely be partnership opportunity in the future. It's not here at the moment because I'm really focused. I want Openreach to stay focused on, building the fibre. It can migrate as many of its current customers, whether it be a BT customer or a CP customer, whatever. And then let's see how, once we've passed the 25 million and we see our route to 30 million, then we can start to go beyond that. In terms of participating in consolidation, would love to. I think problematic at the moment, certainly in wholesale. We've got, we're still, above a 70% market share from a broadband point of view. But from a retail point of view, EE is no longer going to be the market leader after the Vodafone 3 merger. We'll be a challenger again in the market. So I'd love to have the opportunity to maybe acquire some smaller businesses. And that goes for possibly retail altnets as well in the broadband area. But, at the moment, my priority is not making acquisitions. It's about putting all of my capital allocation against Openreach's fibre build, the migration of all of my existing customers onto those new platforms, and modernising the existing BT UK retail businesses with the right IT and everything else. But as you look forward, would love to participate in consolidation where I'm allowed to. And there will be areas we'll absolutely be willing to partner.
Yeah, but it sounds like long term, the end state, there might be an opportunity of up to 4 million between that 30 million and 34 million total homes, where you do look at partnerships.
Possibly yes. Possibly, yeah.
Fantastic.
But, yes.
Alison, that's been absolutely fantastic, really interesting. Thank you so much for making the time. I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again soon.